Well, good morning, everyone. This is John Neerman, and it's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. The time is 9:30 a.m., and I'll begin with a roll call. Commissioner Lindley?
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Janeka?
Good morning. Present.
Good morning. So our commissioners are here. What about our general counsel? Ms. Smith, are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. And our public interest counsel?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Mr. McWhirter. I'd like to remind folks to keep their phones on mute when they're not speaking, and I'd also like to remind anyone who is here only to listen that they can watch the meeting online, and that link is available on the agenda notice. For each item where argument or discussion is allowed, we will inform speakers of their time limits. Registration closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the commission on a particular item, please email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, affiliation, and the item you'd like to comment on, and we will do our best to accommodate the request. For those making presentations, please wait to begin until either I or our general counsel have asked you to begin speaking, and please double check to make sure that your line is unmuted before you speak. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being present. And Ms. Smith, please call the first item.
Item number 1 is the application by Regal LLC for new Texas Solution or new TPDES permit number WQ00158170001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions. And those who have signed in on the item, their presence will be noted for the record.
Thank you. So for the benefit of those who are not familiar with our process, we have a two-part analysis for considering requests for contested cases. First, we consider whether the requesters have met the procedural and substantive requirements to be entitled to a contested case. And assuming at least one requester meets the requirements, we then consider which issues are appropriate to refer for hearing. So part 1 is about who gets a hearing, and part 2 is about which issues are referred. Requesters who are affected in a manner different from the general public and who have articulated personal concerns that are relevant and material to the permit and have done so both in timely comments and a timely hearing request are entitled to a hearing. Colleagues, in this case, the City of San Marcos is our sole requester. The city was timely in its comments and its hearing request. The proposed facility and discharge point are within the city's ETJ. The city is also uniquely affected because it's a regional wastewater provider and because it has alleged interference with its reclaimed water program. So it's clear, as both the executive director and the Office of Public Interest Counsel have concluded, that the city is an affected person. Turning to the issues, and again, for the benefit of those who aren't familiar with our process, we refer issues of fact that have been timely raised by an affected person and that are relevant and material to the application. Stated differently, the issues have to be within our jurisdiction on this type of application. So, for example, we can consider environmental impacts, but we cannot consider economic impacts, just to take one for instance. So I would organize, colleagues, the comments into 7 referred issues as follows. Whether the draft permit is protective of livestock, wildlife, and that includes endangered species and aquatic vegetation. 2, whether it's protective of water quality and the existing uses of those water bodies. 3, whether it is protective of groundwater. 4, whether it complies with the nuisance odor requirements. 5, whether the permit should be altered or denied based either on need, as it's articulated in our authorities, or the state's regionalization policy. Next, whether the draft permit is protective of the city's citizens. And finally, whether the applicant's compliance history raises issues about the applicant's ability to comply with the permit. So that's how I see the issues, the referable issues, and how I might organize them. Commissioner Lindley, how does that sound to you?
I'm in complete agreement on both referring the City of San Marcos and on those 7 issues.
Great. Commissioner Janeka?
Likewise, I arrived in the same place.
Okay. And since we only have one requester here, it seems to me that an ADR referral would be appropriate, and in keeping with our recent practice, allowing the full 180 days. With regards to the city's request for reconsideration, in my view, they did not present new information. The issues are going to be, well considered in the SOA process, so I would deny those requests. Does that sound all right to y'all?
Yes.
Okay. If that's the case, I'll entertain a motion.
I can start. I would move that we grant the hearing request of the City of San Marcos, that we refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues. Issue 1, whether the draft permit is protective of livestock and wildlife, including endangered species and aquatic vegetation, aquatic vegetation in the city's ETJ and immediate vicinity of the proposed facility and discharge route. Issue 2, whether the draft permit is protective of water quality and the existing uses in the receiving waters under the applicable surface water quality standards in 30 TAC Chapter 307. Issue 3, whether the draft permit is protective of groundwater in the area. Issue 4, whether the draft permit complies with applicable requirements to abate and control nuisance odors as set forth in 30 TAC 309.13. Issue 5, whether the Commission should deny or alter the terms and conditions of the draft permit based on consideration of need under Texas Water Code 26.0282 and the general policy to promote regional or area-wide systems under Texas Water Code 26.081. Issue 6, whether the draft permit is protective of the health of the city's citizens in the immediate vicinity of the proposed facility and discharge route. And issue 7, whether the applicant's compliance history for the previous 5 years raises issues regarding the applicant's ability to comply with the material terms of the permit and warrant altering the terms of the permit. That we do refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with SOA's scheduling processes. That we set a hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued, and that we deny the request for reconsideration.
I second that motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 2 is consideration of the adoption of new conventional water treatment plant general permit number TXG 640000, authorizing the discharge of wastewater generated as a result of conventional water treatment facilities into or adjacent to water in the state. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Laurie Fleet with the Water Quality Division. With me today is Harrison Malley from the Environmental Law Division. Staff requests adoption of a new Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System General Permit, number TXG 640000, which will authorize the discharge of wastewater generated as a result of conventional water treatment at water treatment facilities into or adjacent to water in the state. In a letter dated April 14, 2020, the Environmental Protection Agency stated that TCEQ may proceed with the issuance of the draft permit. Public notice of the draft permit was published in the Texas Register and newspapers in May of 2020. The public comment period ended in June 2020. Public comments were received and a response to the comments was developed and is included in a backup material before you today. Staff recommends adoption of this general permit and the response to comments. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Ms. Fleet. I have none. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Janeka.
One minor question, if you might indulge me. Ms. Fleet, I'm just curious, is there any geographical concentration or element of the number of these permits across the state? I recognize it's a fairly small number, and my question is just pointed at the agency's decision to publish notice on this item. I noticed we did a publication in newspapers across the state, and the El Paso Mountain Time region of the state and then the Lower Rio Grande Valley didn't seem to be included in those major newspaper publications. So I was just wondering if you might be able to comment on the decision on which papers to publish in and whether the location of the permits that we currently have in the state may have determined that decision.
Absolutely. I'll start off with a little bit about the notice requirements. 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 205.3A2 requires draft general permits with statewide applicability to provide notice in the Texas Register and in at least one newspaper of statewide circulation. And so this being a statewide general permit, it's the Texas Register and one statewide newspaper. It was published in the Texas Register and the following newspapers: the Houston Chronicle, the Dallas Morning News, Austin American Statesman, San Antonio Express News, Waco Tribune Herald, and Abilene Express News, two of which of those newspapers have statewide circulation, that being Houston and Dallas. Additional newspapers were chosen based on the location of existing wastewater treatment plants that discharge into water in the state, as well as a budget of $14,000. And so the reason we picked those is because, like you mentioned, the location of these facilities. So the El Paso, Midland, and Rio Grande Valley areas each only had one water treatment plant. Up in the Panhandle, the Amarillo, Lubbock, and San Angelo areas each also had one water treatment plant. So areas such as Abilene, Dallas-Fort Worth, they had a combined total of 25 facilities. The Waco, Austin, and San Antonio areas had a combined total of 34 facilities. And then the Tyler, Beaumont, Houston, Corpus area had a combined total of 43 facilities. So the public notice, number one, it exceeds the minimum requirements of the rule. And then number two, it was targeted at areas of the state with the highest concentration of water treatment plants in order to maximize our available funding.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fleet. I think that was a better answer than I even expected or hoped for. Appreciate that very much. No other questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, good question, Commissioner. Appreciate that, and fantastic answer. Thank you, Ms. Fleet. That was very thorough, and I learned a bunch, so appreciate that. Ms. Smith, is there anyone signed in to speak on this item?
We do not have anyone registered on this one.
Okay, and Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends adoption of the general permit as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. Colleagues, this proposed general permit does meet the water code requirements for a general permit. I think it's a practical response given the uniformity in these types of authorizations. So I do favor adopting it, and would be glad to hear your thoughts or a motion. Commissioner Lindley?
I'm in agreement and ready to move forward with adoption.
Thank you. Commissioner Janeka?
I am in the same position, and I will go ahead and move that we adopt new water treatment plant general permit number TXG 640000 as recommended by the Executive Director, and adopt the Executive Director's response to comment.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next items.
That takes us to the enforcement docket, items 3 through 20. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the matters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me today is Brian Sinclair, also of the Enforcement Division, and Charmaine Backens of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 3 through 20. The total assessed administrative penalties are $371,923, with $51,639 deferred, $74,055 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $46,229 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. I have none. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Janeka?
Likewise, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak?
No one has signed in on these.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhorter, what do you think?
OPIC reviewed these items and we recommend approval of the orders as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. I've reviewed these items and agree. I think we should move forward with approval. And Commissioner Lindley, what are your thoughts?
I agree, and I'm ready to make a motion. I
Please
would
do.
move that we adopt items 3 through 20 as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 21 is the consideration for publication of and hearing on the proposed repeal of 30 Texas Administrative Code Sections 328.203 and 328.204, and the simultaneous proposal of new Sections 328.203 and 328.204, all regarding waste minimization and recycling. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Kaylin Room with the External Relations Division. With me is Kathy Humphreys with the Environmental Law Division. The proposed rulemaking would repeal Section 328.203 and Section 328.204 and simultaneously propose new Section 328.203 and Section 328.204 of 30 TAC Chapter 328 Waste Minimization and Recycling. A virtual public hearing will be offered on this proposal on November 17, 2020. Staff respectfully recommends approval to propose the publication of and hearing on Chapter 328 Waste Minimization and Recycling. Staff also respectfully requests approval to make non-substantive revisions to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Room. And just so I'm clear, this rulemaking was really initiated by the Commission following on our recent rulemaking for these waste minimization and recycling rules. And it's really just, and I think that was our June 10th amendment, but this is really strictly about providing greater clarity and readability and doesn't have any real substantive change to it. Am I recalling that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Commissioner Janeka?
None. Thank you for the tremendous amount of work that I recognize go into every rulemaking, and I'm sorry that it's particularly may feel like extra work now because it's another public notice and another process, but I'm glad to see that we're able to go quickly and follow back up on that process. So thanks for the clarifications and the correction.
Thank you, Commissioner Janeka. Ms. Smith, is there anyone signed in to speak?
No one has signed in to speak.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhorter, what do you think?
OPIC recommends approval for publication of and hearing on the proposed revisions of the Commission's Chapter 328 rules as presented by the Executive Director.
I do agree with that, colleagues. I think we're ready to put this out for comment. And Commissioner Lindley, I'll take any additional thoughts or a motion.
I'm in agreement, and yeah.
Commissioner Janeka?
Perfect. Likewise, I will move that we approve for publication of and hearing on the proposed repeal of Sections 328.203 and 328.204 and simultaneous proposal of new Sections 328.203 and 328.204 of 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 328, Waste Minimization and Recycling, as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 22 is consideration of the adoption of new, amended, and repealed sections of 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 293, regarding water districts. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Chris Holm with the Water Supply Division. With me is Kayla Murray with the Environmental Law Division. This adopted rulemaking would implement Senate Bill 1234, 82nd Texas Legislature, 2011, Senate Bill 1987, and Senate Bill 2014, 85th Texas Legislature, 2017, and House Bill 304, House Bill 2590, House Bill 2914, Senate Bill 239, and Senate Bill 911, 86th Texas Legislature, 2019. The adopted rulemaking would amend sections 293.3, 293.11, 293.14, 293.15, 293.44, 293.81, 293.94, 293.201, and 293.202, create new section 293.90 and sections 293.132 through 293.137, and repeal sections 293.132 through 293.136 to revise creation, bond, road powers, and dissolution rules for water districts, including their general provisions and annual reporting requirements. The proposed rules were published in the May 15, 2002 issue of the Texas Register. The public comment period closed on June 16, 2020. The rule team did receive public comments, and based on those comments, the rule team made the following substantive changes. Remove proposed revisions regarding House Bill 440 for general obligation bonds, and made revisions throughout the rules to provide clarity and enhance rule flow. Additionally, we have been made aware of an issue raised by some of the stakeholders who commented on Rule 293-201, which addresses the acquisition of road powers by a municipal utility district. There is some confusion on whether road powers granted by the Commission require the road to be conveyed to a governmental entity. In order to address this issue and avoid any confusion, we propose that 293-201A read in full. Texas Water Code Section 54-234 authorizes a municipal utility district or any petitioner seeking the creation of a municipal utility district to petition the Commission to acquire road powers, period. In conclusion, staff respectfully recommends adoption of this rulemaking to Chapters 293. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with the Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman, and thank you for addressing that last point. The September 29 letter from the Association of Water Board Directors that's in our backup materials caused me to scratch my head a little bit. And going back to the statute, I thought there was potentially a little bit of ambiguity in there, but reading all the provisions of Texas Water Code Section 54.234 together, and specifically subsections A and D, I decided that the best reading is that the districts should have that authority to operate and maintain roadways, that they do not have to be transferred. So I appreciate you addressing that point, and I don't have any questions. Commissioner Lindley, any questions for Executive Director staff?
No, I appreciate the commentary you just offered, and I'm ready to move forward with adopting what was presented today.
Okay, Commissioner Janeka?
I guess I only have one question for ED staff, and that's, again, directly at the late-breaking comment from the public, which I agree with you, Chairman. I did take a look back at the statutes since seeing that additional information, and I came to the same conclusion you did. It looks like there's a little ambiguity, but I think the legislature is very deliberate in use of ambiguity at times. And so as I read our rules, the comment from the public does stand. It looks like there was a change in law effective last September that our rules on its face may have been slightly in conflict with. I am troubled by changes outside of our typical rulemaking process in general. I don't know that this change is one that departs from what the legislature has already spoken on clearly in terms of statutory authority, and I think that removing the language as proposed doesn't deprive ED of any discretion in making sure it's not overly utilized. So I'll just put the question to you. Do you feel that the language in reaching the conclusion and supporting the change that the commenter suggested, do you have any concerns that ED would lack discretion in denying road powers to districts if they were inappropriately asking for it or requesting it in some manner that would seem to be in conflict with the statute?
Mr. Ullman, you want to take that on?
Sure, Commissioner Janica, thanks for the question. I believe, there was a little bit of ambiguity with the statute as written and that showed in the rulemaking. I believe the concern has been addressed by this change we proposed with 293-201A, and it would avoid any kind of confusion or conflict with this. And I don't believe the staff has any issues with the proposed revision.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that was my sense. But I think not having noticed this along with the rest of the rule changes to the public, I can't imagine a scenario in which this change would gouge someone's oxen and they come screaming that this was taken arbitrarily or outside of our typical procedures. But I'm comforted by by Edie's conclusion on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we're ready to hear from any interested persons. Ms. Smith, is anyone signed in to speak on this item?
Yes, we have one person, Mr. Trey Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. You can go ahead when you're ready. Please identify yourself and your affiliation for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Trey Larry with the law firm of Allen Boone Humphreys Robinson, also a volunteer with the Association of Water Board Directors, which is the statewide association of MUDs and similar water districts. Really just want to thank the staff for their hard work and diligence. This is a really good package of rule changes for MUDs and similar water districts. And the association has worked with staff for several months now on the rules, and staff has just been great. And particularly want to thank them and thank you for entertaining the change at the dais described today. That's an important change for us, and appreciate that over the past few days, people have worked really hard to make it happen. I'm happy to answer any further questions, but really I'm just here to thank you and respectfully request the adoption of the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. I appreciate that. I think we have a fantastic staff, and I'm glad that you recognize that. Appreciate the kind words. I also wanted to thank you and the association for all of your work on this rulemaking package, and including your September 29 letter. There's still time to get it right, and I think we're going to get it right today. So thank you for that. Commissioner Lindley, any questions for Mr. Larry?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Janetka?
No questions, but thank you for watching so closely and helping us keep course with the changes the legislature makes to the statutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Janetka. Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends adoption of the revisions to the Commission's Chapter 293 rules needed for legislative implementation as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you, and colleagues, as you heard, I agree with that, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I would move that we adopt the amended and repealed sections of Chapter 293 as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janetka, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 23 is the adoption of amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 305, Consolidated Permits, and 330, Municipal Solid Waste, and the repeal of Chapter 330, Subchapter F, Analytical Quality Assurance and Quality Control. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Steve O'Dill with Waste Permits Division. With me is Anthony Tatu with the Environmental Law Division. This rulemaking revises 30 TAC Chapters 305 and 330 to implement House Bills 1331, 1435, and 1953, and to repeal obsolete requirements of 30 TAC Chapter 330, Subchapter F, relating to analytical quality assurance and quality control. The proposed rules were published in the May 15th, 2020 issue of the Texas Register. The public comment period closed on June 14th, 2020. The rule team received 2 public comments. Both were in support of the proposed rulemaking. No substantive changes were made in response to these comments. In conclusion, staff respectfully recommends adoption of this rulemaking to Chapters 305 and 330. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. I have none. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Ginecka?
None for me, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one is signed in.
And Mr. McWhorter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends adoption of the changes to the Commission's Chapter 305 and Chapter 330 rules to implement House Bill 1331, 1435, and 1953, and to repeal obsolete rules identified by the quad review of Chapter 330. We support the rulemaking as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. Yeah, colleagues, at the risk of being redundant, this is a fairly straightforward rulemaking. It implements legislation from the 86th session, and as we heard, repeals provisions that staff has identified as obsolete as part of the quadrennial review. And the only comments that we received, 2 of them were in support of the rule. So I think we should move ahead with adoption. And Commissioner Lindley, let me ask you for your thoughts.
I'm in agreement and ready to move forward with adoption as well.
Commissioner Ginecka, you want to offer a motion?
Thank you. I do. I'm right there with y'all. I would move that we approve the adoption of amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 305, Consolidated Permits, and 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 330, Municipal Solid Waste, and the repeal of Chapter 330, Subchapter F, Analytical Quality Assurance and Quality Control, as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginecka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 24 is the consideration of the adoption of amended 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 281.18, regarding applications processing. The Executive Director's staff is here to present.
Good morning.
Good morning again, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Laurie Fleet with the Water Quality Division. With me today is Stephanie Scogan of the Environmental Law Division. The proposed rulemaking would amend 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 281.18, to provide an option for the use of electronic mail for communicating application deficiencies and receiving responses from applicants. Applications will not be returned unless at least one certified letter is sent to the applicant. The adopted changes will modernize communications between TCEQ and applicants, reduce TCEQ postage costs, and improve the efficiency of application processing. The proposed rulemaking was published in the Texas Register in May 2020, and the comment period ended in June 2020. Public comments were received, and responses were developed that are included in the backup material before you today. These responses did result in revisions to the proposed rule. Staff respectfully request adoption of the proposed rule and response to comments. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we're available for any questions.
Thank you again, Ms. Fleet. Appreciate that. I have no questions. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Ginecka?
No questions. I think I was pleased by staff's consideration of and response on the comments. So thanks for that.
Likewise, I was as well. Ms. Smith, is there anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one is signed in.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhorter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC supports adoption of amended Section 281.18 as presented by the ED.
Thank you. Colleagues, this is an improved process, even more so because of the good comments that we've got and are responding to those. And I'm ready to move forward with adoption. Commissioner Lindley, what do you think?
I'm ready to move forward, and I can make a motion. It sounds like we're all in agreement. I move that we adopt the amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code 281.18 as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginecka, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 25 is the consideration of the publication of and hearing on the proposed 2021 Regional Haze State Implementation Plan revision. The Executive Director's staff is here to present.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Walker Williamson with the Air Quality Division. With me is John Minter with the Environmental Law Division. For your consideration today is the Executive Director's proposed revision to the State Implementation Plan, or SIP, for Regional Haze. The proposed 2021 Regional Haze SIP revision would demonstrate compliance with the Regional Haze requirements of the Federal Clean Air Act, Section 169A, and the EPA's Regional Haze Rule for the second Regional Haze planning period. The proposed SIP revision addresses regional haze in Big Bend and Guadalupe Mountains National Parks in Texas and Class 1 areas located outside Texas that may be affected by emissions from within the state. Staff respectfully requests permission to publish the proposed SIP revision, solicit public comment, and hold a public hearing. Thank you. We are available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. I have no questions. Commissioner Lindley?
No questions, thanks. And to our Office of Air for all the work they put into this.
It's been quite a story. just the latest chapter here. Commissioner Janeka, what do you think?
I'll echo those comments. I'm always humbled by the complexity and the scope and size of the issues that we get to work with on EPA in terms of these larger transboundary issues. So I just want to commend you, staff, on continuing to push the ball. I know we have some live contentions that we're still actively working towards an agreement on with all the stakeholders. So I appreciate this update. I think it looks appropriate to move forward on right now.
Well put. Let's see if there's anybody signed in to speak on this item. Ms. Smith, is there anyone who'd like to address the commission?
Not today.
Thank you. Mr. McWhorter?
OPIC recommends approval for publication of and hearing on the proposed SIP revision as presented by the ED.
Thank you. And colleagues, again, my view, this SIP revision contains the required elements. It's a reasonable step towards achieving visibility goals for the relevant Class 1 areas. I think it's ready for publication and public comment, and happy to hear any additional thoughts or motion.
I'm good with it as well.
Thanks. Just searching for my mic button, I would move that we approve the publication of and hearing on the proposed 2021 Regional Haze State Implementation Program revision as recommended by the ED.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 26 is our public comment session. We do not have anyone signed in to speak at this time. So that takes us to the end of items posted for open session. Items 27 through 30 are for closed session, and the commission will not meet in closed session today.
Thank you. So with that, colleagues, the time is 10:09 a.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day. Thanks.
Okay.